Hi, my name is Elizabeth Seeger, and I'm one of the 14 members of the International Sustainability Standards Board. Prior to joining this role, I spent 13 years at a global asset manager where I wore many hats. One of the hats was as a preparer who was disclosing sustainability-related information to our investors, and another was as an investor who was thinking about how sustainability-related information helped us understand opportunities for value creation. And in both of these roles, I became increasingly frustrated with the state of sustainability disclosures, including the fragmented landscape, the increasing number of frameworks and expectations, and ultimately that the information was not particularly decision useful or comparable. And it is because of this experience or experiences that I took on the honor of joining the ISSB to help provide a solution to this challenge facing the global capital markets. I want to welcome you to this discussion, which is on one of my favorite topics, industry-based disclosures. During the IFRS Foundation's consultation to establish the ISSB, it heard clearly from investors that industry specificity is important for sustainability disclosures. Some of the key reasons are, one, that sustainability-related risks and opportunities vary greatly by industry, and two, that investors generally analyze companies and portfolios through an industry lens. Focusing on industry-specific topics and metrics is also more likely to yield more comparable information, which is critical for investors' decision-making. As I mentioned, before joining the ISSB, I experienced this firsthand in my role as an investor at a global asset management firm. Additionally, as we did our own public reporting and supported the work of the companies in which we're invested, industry-specific standards provided a cost-effective and focused approach to disclosures. For these reasons, the requirements to disclose industry-specific information is a really important feature of both IFRS S1 and S2. We are now seeing other standard setters such as the GRI and EFRAG recognize and respond to this market need. And to help preparers meet these requirements for industry-specific information, the ISSB decided to use the SASB standards, both as a basis for the illustrative guidance on climate disclosures in S2 and as guidance for reporting on matters beyond climate, as set out in S1. The SASB standards are the only sustainability reporting standards in place today that comprehensively cover a full range of industries and information that are tailored to the needs of investors. Because the SASB Standards Board was headquartered in the United States, there is a perception that the SASB standards are US focused. In fact, they are used by over 3,000 preparers and investors in over 80 jurisdictions around the globe today. The SASB standards went through a due process that shares many of the characteristics with that of the IFRS Foundation, including public consultation based on exposure drafts and very extensive stakeholder engagement. The ISSB also benefits from several years of market use of the SASB standards. Nonetheless, since the SASB standards were not developed by the IFRS Foundation and thus have not been subject to the full IFRS due process, the ISSB decided to ask companies to refer to and consider the SASB standards content in applying S1 and the SASB-based examples that are now part of S2. So what does that mean? It means that a company must provide industry-specific information. But when deciding exactly what to disclose, they should look at the SASB standards and consider whether that information is indeed relevant to meet the objectives in S1 and S2 for their business. In other words, does it reflect your business? Do the specific metrics fairly represent your performance, and are they investor relevant? If not, then other industry-specific information can be provided. Given the unique status of the SASB standards in the IFRS Foundation's literature, the ISSB has developed a specific due process for future enhancements to the SASB standards. Specifically, a group of 5 ISSB members is tasked with developing exposure drafts and final amendments to the SASB standards, which are then approved by the full ISSB. The comment period for exposure drafts is the same as that of the ISSB standards, and the vote required to approve amendments to the SASB standards is exactly the same as that for the ISSB standards. The ISSB is responsible for maintaining and enhancing the SASB standards and has committed to integrating an industry-based approach into its standard-setting model. As you may know, we have already made some enhancements to the SASB standards. Importantly, the ISSB consulted on and made some enhancements to the international applicability of the SASB standards during 2023. These enhancements removed and replaced jurisdiction-specific references in the topics and metrics and will help preparers apply the SASB standards regardless of the jurisdiction in which they operate. Looking ahead, an important part of the ISSB's committed work is its upcoming work plan and its focus on maintaining and enhancing the ISSB's industry-based materials, including the SASB standards. This work will help us ensure that these materials stay relevant and help companies provide comparable, decision-useful information to their investors. I'd now like to turn to some of our stakeholders to hear their perspectives on the importance of industry-specific information and how they're using this information to make better decisions. We will start with Takeo Omori of Asset Management One.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm Takeo Omori of Asset Management One, which is one of the largest asset managers in Japan, with AUM of approximately $470 billion. Investors like us, especially those with a long-term perspective, are using not only financial information, but also non-financial information, including sustainability-related information, when making investment decisions. We believe that an integrated analysis of financial and non-financial information can tell us what a company really intends to do, the direction it is heading in, and its value creation story. When analyzing information on investing companies, we generally do that in two ways. The first is to look at the company's historical trends. The other is to compare the company with other companies in the same industry, including global competitors. The latter is quite difficult to do without a unified standard of disclosure. The ISSB S1-S2 is a milestone in that it integrates the various frameworks that existed into a single framework. Another important point is to compare a company with other companies in the same industry, including global competitors. Here, industry-specific information becomes important. In order to make comparisons within an industry, it is easier for investors to do analysis if disclosure items are common within an industry. I believe that the risks and opportunities of companies are tied to their business models, so it is reasonable from the perspective on comparability to disclose information based on industries where they are considered to have similar business models. The SASB standard would be a good base for this. It is the result of many discussions among companies and investors, and it has been running as a reference base, so it would be efficient for everyone to use and refer to it first. The ISSB S1 includes the sentence that an entity shall refer to and consider the applicability of the disclosure topics in the SASB standard. I welcome this sentence. Of course, at the end of the day, it is important for each company to disclose its material items on its own, but the SASB standard would be a good base for this. With this base, it's easier for companies to disclose information and also easier for investors to compare with other companies in the same industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Omori-san. And now we'll hear from Richard Manley, Chief Sustainability Officer for CPP Investments and Chair of the ISSB Investor Advisory Group.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe it's worth starting by outlining our expectations of boards with respect to sustainability factors It's our expectation that boards are able to demonstrate that they are providing appropriate oversight and counsel of the executive to ensure that all material business risks and opportunities are considered when setting strategy, operationalizing that strategy, and then communicating with shareholders. And our experience is that pretty much 80% or more of the material sustainability factors that present themselves to any enterprise are tied to the industry they operate in rather than the geography they operate in or the specific nuance of the business. So our really expectation here is that boards are aligning their reporting with the ISSB standards, not only to provide us decision useful insights to price risk, but more importantly, to demonstrate that they are actively engaging with their management teams about the most material drivers of value creation or risk mitigation for their company, given the industry it operates in. Then in terms of how we use the standards, we talk to what we call life cycle integration of sustainability factors as a driver of alpha. And that means that when we initiate a new investment diligence process, the first thing we do is effectively scope the diligence informed by the material sustainability factors that impact the industry. And one of the inputs into that process, and this has been now for many years, are the SASB standards, plus incremental areas of risk that have effectively emerged since the creation of the SASB standards. And that could be tied to maybe cyber risk, responsible AI, and some of the evolution we've seen in the EDI landscape over the last 5 years. Again, though, in terms of then reconciling why industry specific matters, maybe the smell test I would always ask is, does a rational business person in the industry intuit that improving the performance on this metric would reduce risk for a company operating in this industry or create value? In our experience, all of the metrics that were identified by the SASB standards intuit that logical response. Companies that drive improved performance on these metrics will mitigate risks and will capture value and opportunities that are derived from effectively delivering a more informed and more considered strategy for a company in this industry. And with respect to how we engage with portfolio companies, directors about adoption of the SASB standards, for the last 5 years, it's been our public position that boards who sought to meet our expectation of them being able to demonstrate they were proactively providing oversight and counsel of the executive, we made public that reporting in alignment with the TCFD and SASB standards would, in our position, meet our expectations. Obviously, since the launch of the ISSB standards, we've now redrafted that language to make clear that for boards to meet our expectations, that aligning the issuer's reporting with the ISSB should be sufficient to give them confidence that they will have our ongoing support for their reappointment. And one thing I will also make clear is that where directors are unable to demonstrate that they're meeting our expectations with respect to overseeing sustainability and governance factors in the company, we do withhold support for director reappointment.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you all for joining. Please visit our website, ifrs.org, for more information about our work, standards, implementation tools, and resources. We've also just published a resource on how to use the SASB standards in applying IFRS S1. Look for the link to that below this recording. Thank you for listening in.